Hey everyone, Helena here with the Speaker Insight Facebook Live, and we've got the wonderful Janet Murray with us. I am going to do the bits that we normally do, but as you can see, Kelly isn't here. So we are normally two of us, Speaker Insight, where we help speakers, authors, and coaches to build a portfolio business on your terms, which means that essentially we want you to do it your way. So that's kind of why we're doing this live with Janet today around planning your social media content, because this time of year might be a good time to get started for 2022. Yes, I did say that. So we just want to get you forward planning in some way, shape, or form. And we know that, like, with the 12,000 of you that are inside the Connection Hub, where you are meeting up and getting loads of opportunities, where you're meeting each other, you're doing loads of collaborations, you're hooking up with all the people who actually serve the needs that you have, those illustrators, the web designers, all of those people. That's the place where you're coming together to actively really connect. And we know that many of you join us live, but most of you will actually watch this as a hashtag replay. So pop the hashtag replay in, because this is going to be one that I think a lot of people are going to want to watch over time. So for those of you who are here, please ask all of your questions around how you might do social media content. As I start to ask Janet, I'm pretty certain that you'll spark in all sorts of ways. But for now, let us know where you're listening in from, whether you're doing it on the replay or whether you're here with us live. Say hello. Obviously, I'm driving everything by myself, so I'm just going to keep playing and dilly-dallying around in all sorts of ways. Those of you who are used to it, great. Those of you who are new, do come and join us inside the Connection Hub if you're just listening on the Speaker Insight page. I'll pop a link in there for you in a minute. But today we really are talking about how to plan your social media content so it works. And because many of us can actually just do willy-nilly all over the place. So get your heads into that. Go get pen and paper, because I'm pretty certain that that's all going to happen. And we're always going to kick off with, I want to know, where you're listening from by all means, but I also really want to know, what's the buzz in your business? So this one, it's the what's intriguing, what's exciting. Have you got an award coming up? Are you actually going for a Christmas dinner? Are you seeing people in real life? What's actually happening for you that is exciting? Here comes the jingle. It always makes me giggle, always, every single time. So the buzz, as you can see, Kelly and I are actually planning, COVID in their household permitting, to do a whole bunch of videoing over the next month or so. That's actually creating some new content for all of you lovely people. And for those of you who are fans of us, you probably know that the annual vision board workshop is about to happen. So I'm running this will be the 50th vision board workshop I run, and it's happening as ever on the 31st of December. So you can let go of the year that was and wake up in 2022 on the 1st of January to the new year that you're planning for yourself. So if that's of interest to any of you, please do come and join me. I'll pop the link in the comments for you when Janet tells us your buzz. What's going on for you, Janet? And then we'll do proper introductions when I really kind of get to grill you.
Well, I just launched a new product on a whim. So I have this content planner, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go. Yeah. And I've been chomping at the bit to launch like a day planner, but I kept thinking, I can't launch something new. I've just got to focus on it, and you've got to be really good and make sure I stick to the plan and don't go off piste. As like if you're an entrepreneur, there was that kind of danger that you'll be like, oh, it's a really good idea, I'm just going to launch it today. Yeah. But I have actually launched it because I've been I basically got my designer to create what I put in my own planner, my notebook. I've been drawing out in my own notebook to help me get things done. And right. I kept, no, we're going to wait. No. But we've done it. So we pre-launched it over the weekend, and we're doing it. So I think sometimes you just need to do those sort of things, don't you, to keep the creativity going. That was my excuse anyway. So.
Listen, I think as an entrepreneurially spirited person, which most of the people in here are, you probably recognize it. We think we should, and there's that should word that goes, yeah, And then there's the creativity buzz that just overrides that and goes, yes, but it's really good. And I just want to get that out there. So completely get it. Pop the link in afterwards so we can get both of those. Because obviously I don't have that link to share out because you did it on the
Yeah, I did do it on the fly. Yeah, I think it was very much, it was on the horizon, but then we were like, let's just do it on Friday. And that's what we did. Yeah.
I just love that. And it's kind of the way that we all as kind of speakers, authors, coaches, the people who support those people, because it's fast and because we can attend to the needs of the market, that actually really does support us in doing it. So I'm going to backtrack before I get myself into conversation, because I know I want to be in conversation with you. But I'm going to say, first and foremost, there may well be some people who don't know who you are. So what's the background and how did you get into doing what you're doing? Where did you start, Janet? Who are you?
Plenty of people who don't know who I am. So I started off as I'm Janet Murray. Obviously, I started off as a teacher, and then I retrained as a journalist. So I taught in secondary schools for about 4 years, I think it was in total. I didn't hate it or anything. I just was quite young and was working really, really hard and feeling quite burnt out quite early on. And I'd always had this thing about being a journalist. So I went and retrained in journalism, and I ended up mainly freelance for best part of 20 years, writing and editing for mainly sort of national newspapers. So I worked mainly for The Guardian, and I was writing about education and politics mainly, and I really liked it, but I kind of accidentally fell into doing something else. I was always freelance. I always had that entrepreneurial streak in me, and I liked that because I didn't want to be employed by anyone full time. I liked the freedom to take on different projects and do different things. And then I kind of accidentally fell into doing what I'm doing now, because I was so a lot of people think journalists get really, really well paid. And yeah, you know, if you're kind of like I don't know, Susanna Reid or whatever. I'm trying to think of somebody else, but you know, if you've got one of the top BBC jobs or ITV jobs or whatever, you probably get decent enough. But I was still being paid by the word, and you know, it wasn't bad. And but sometimes I do, like, you know, an investigative feature for The Guardian for like 2,000 words, and I'd have spent weeks on it, and I used to get to the point where I thought actually someone could have paid me to do this because I spent so long on it. But that gave me the kudos to get. I used to get approached by like sort of corporate in my space, which was generally charities, universities, colleges, education, think tanks, that kind of thing. And they asked me to come in and do training. So it would often be around pitching to the press, like, you know, we want to get more press coverage, our pitches aren't hitting the spot. So I thought, this is great because I can charge loads more money for this, and I can just go in and deliver this for a day and come out. And how can I get more of this really nice, juicy consultancy work, because I really enjoy it, and training because I was a teacher before. So I thought, oh, I know what I'll do. I had a decent sized following on Twitter because I was a journalist and I used Twitter a lot for work, but I thought, well, maybe I'll start a blog, because if I blog about this stuff, people will be Googling it and then they will they'll find me. But then I realized that having a blog isn't enough. You need people to find your blog. And so I started to learn about things like search engine optimization, how to get my blogs to the top of Google, because otherwise what was the point of writing them? And then in order to do that, I started to learn about social media. And then I realized that if I wanted to be able to sell people stuff, the more I learned about digital marketing, if I wanted to be able to sell people stuff and to make money, I needed an email list. So I started to learn how to do email marketing and got really quite into that. And so over a course of a few years, I started to learn all of this stuff and thought, wow, you know, I could sell courses or memberships, or like it was, I could sell digital downloads, or and so it went from being this kind of way of people finding me to book me for consultancy to suddenly I could see these other possibilities. An interesting thing, I think, for anyone who's listening or watching who fancies the idea of this is somebody make it sound so easy, and it's not easy. And actually building the email list is the most important bit, but probably the most hard bit. I was going to say hardest bit, the hardest bit as well. But it took time. It took a lot of grit and determination, because it isn't easy to keep plugging away at all of this stuff, and it takes a lot longer than people think to build an audience and to build your list and that kind of thing. Maybe later we can talk about conversion rates and things like that. But I stuck with it, and I had the sort of day job as a journalist for quite a while until I started to transition. But another important thing I think that I always try to impress into my clients is that a mistake people make with selling, say, digital products is trying to sell what they want to teach rather than what people want to learn. And I was smart. There were many mistakes I made, but one thing I was smart about is people wanted to pay me for something I didn't really want to teach. I did not want to teach people how to write press releases, because I hate press releases and find them a waste of time. I wrote a book about it, but I knew that that's what people wanted to buy. And I would have to bide my time. So now I sell, I do what I want to do. I have my own business, like teaching people about content. I have a membership program. I have this planner, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, the content planner, which came about by accident and has turned into my whole business. I've sold courses, digital downloads, books, planners, like events offline. But I realized that I would probably have to start with what people wanted to buy from me. And now I think I can be a lot more picky about what the information products I do sell, but it's been quite a journey to get there. So I hope that gives you a bit of an insight.
I think it does. And what I love more than anything is that, and certainly when we work with our Changemaker Central members, sort of that's exactly the journey that every single one of us as a speaker author coach needs to go through. It's that whole honing, not actually giving what we want, but actually doing active listening, which we talk about all the time, to really hear what do they want, so that we can earn the right to actually sell them what they need later on. But then what I really love is that your business has evolved out of what you started doing that you didn't necessarily want to do, but knew you had to, that then actually kind of opened up the world a little bit more. And I think that whole kind of, it is more than possible to do what you love. And it does take a little bit of a few iterations before we get to that stage, because you have to find your market, you have to find your sweet spot, really, and also figure out along the way, do I enjoy doing this bit? Because I've definitely done the very, very large workshops, and actually I don't like them. 50 is fine for me, thank you very much, because I like the intimacy. So I think there's something about us just honing and figuring out what do I actually really love, and then slowly but surely kind of using that email database and everything else to just set it up how you want it, which is why we call everything that we do is kind of working on our terms, which is great. So what I want to do is I want to really kind of delve in straight away, because you flash the planner, and I want to talk about that, because social media is the thing that has people tearing their hair out all the time. So what I think we're all aware of, or what people should be aware of, is that working with social media really is a delicate balance, and it's not necessarily that kind of immediate return sort of piece. So when you're working with people, or what's your approach that you would recommend to people, to the speakers, authors and coaches that are listening? Is it a sprint? Is it a marathon? What should they be thinking about?
It's definitely a marathon. And the one thing that I've learned, obviously, say you hone your message over time and you learn what people need to hear. I think the messages people need to hear. And one thing I found myself saying, like, ad nauseum over the last year, is that content creation is a job. People get paid to create social media content. They get paid to do just email marketing. Email marketing is a whole different discipline. Like Facebook ads, a completely different discipline. So to start a business, or to take your business online and expect that you're going to do a couple of, say, Facebook posts, and I spoke about this at an event recently, like that even like one person will comment on what you write. That is actually expecting a lot of yourself, because it's social media content creation. Not only is it a skill that people train and they hone their craft for years, you can even do a degree in it now, And
I know, right?
And I had an advantage, I guess, as a journalist, in that I knew about content, and I was used to creating digital content and being responsive to what what people were engaging with and what they weren't. But writing a 2,000 word article investigative feature is not the same as writing social media content or making a video or Instagram reel. So I think the first thing that people have to do is they have to get really honest and real with themselves. You know, I've been doing some Facebook Lives, Instagram account reviews. I'm doing them every day at 2 this week, apart from Thursday. So if anyone wants to pop along, you can come and take advantage of that. And yesterday, I think I did a florist and a photographer and an artist. And I was like, you know, if you give me a pencil and I'm not going to be able to draw what you can draw, you know. But it feels to me like lots of coaches and consultants and speakers, they put these really high expectations on themselves. And if I didn't know better, I think it was almost arrogance, because like, what would make you think that you could get online and get on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you know, whatever, and be able to create really super engaging content? Like, you're going to have to learn stuff, and you're probably going to need to get some professional help. I don't mean a social media manager. We could talk about that later. I don't think that's necessarily the right thing, and particularly at the beginning, I don't think it's the right thing. But you're going to need to roll your sleeves up, and it is a marathon. But being in a kind way, like actually, why, you know, the number of coaches or consultants I speak to who are like, but I posted on Facebook for a week and like nobody bought my stuff. It's like, well, there's a lot to learn here, and there's a lot of different disciplines, and you have to first of all just accept that it's going to take you some time, and recognize it is a skill and it's a craft, and you're going to need to give yourself some time. But it all starts with what you were saying earlier, Helena, about who's your audience, like.
Well, I'm really glad you've said that, because Kieran's actually just asked, is regular avatar research needed to make sure the content is current and up to date? If so, how many times a year do you need to do this?
Okay, so first of all, so Kieran, I've only just met you, and I probably need to give you the proviso. I'm very blunt, and sometimes I don't realise how blunt I am. So like, this is meant really nicely and kindly. I've only really realised how people are like, oh, you're so direct. I didn't realise. But
no, we like a bit of authenticity here. So you just get in there, Janet. Get in there.
So I'm not keen on this idea of an avatar, because I think it comes from that marketing school of so I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write an avatar. I'm not suggesting you do this at all, Kieran, but for anyone watching who's like, I did Marie Forleo's B School, and I think there's lots of amazing stuff in that program. But one of the things she did teach at the time, I don't know if she still does, is this idea of an avatar. And you go and you'd write down, oh, this is my ideal customer or client, and they drive this car and they shop here and they do that, you know. And actually, for me, it's like, well, who are you? Who have you sold? Whatever it is. For me, it all starts with selling. So why are we doing social media? We're doing it because ultimately we have something we want to sell. So what's the thing that we most need to sell at the moment? So instead of avatar research, I'd actually kind of look at that. Well, what is it I'm selling? Like, what's the key thing I need to sell? What action do I want people to take? Ultimately, if I'd like them to book me as a speaker, that's where I start. You know, it's more complicated than that, I guess, or it's more in depth than that. So it's really about thinking, well, so this is what I want people to do. Ultimately, I want them to book me to speak on whatever topic, or book me as a consultant on whatever topic. So who have I sold that to before? Like, so if I have sold it before, and mostly I think coaches and consultants, they have. But to come up with an avatar, this is the danger. You come up with this avatar of this amazing person that you love to sell to, they're the perfect client, but you've never actually sold them. So I was thinking, well, think about somebody that you've sold, that you've sold this product or service to before. Who are they? Sometimes people say at this stage, well, I haven't ever sold this product or service. Well, actually, it's probably better to start by selling, you know, like me in the press release training. Like, it's probably better to start with something you have sold before and think about how you could sell that on social media. Because if you're trying to sell something on social media that you've never actually sold anyone before, you're actually making it really, really hard. Sorry, I've got a very insistent cat trying to get out.
We approve of all animals, and we know that they take over the show. It's completely fine.
I've got 3, so they might all they all decide. Usually when I'm on a live, they decide that they all want to come in and out at the same time, and they think that I'm like the doorkeeper or something. Anyway, so that's the first thing, is to think about, so who have I sold this thing to before, and what are they like, you know, and what are they interested in, and what questions have they got? So with me in the press release training, like, you know, as I say, was not keen, but how long should my press release be? You know, what if a journalist doesn't reply? How long should I leave it? So it's about thinking about those real questions that people ask you, and just remembering that that we're all selfish, and
Yeah.
I mean that in the nicest possible way, and we
For
don't
sure.
consume content that doesn't add value. So an add value can present its, it can be about educating, and it often is for
Yeah.
coaches, consultants, speakers. But it can be about inspiring. I've got these, when we talk about my planner later, I can talk about
Yeah,
this.
I definitely want you to share the system because it's great.
But it's about, how can I add value? And ideally, how can I give someone a quick win? And also remembering that most of us don't buy the first time that we
For
see a
sure.
video from someone or a post or whatever. It's like brick by brick by brick by brick, and we're just adding more value, inspiring, educating, entertaining. And it's, So sorry, you were going to ask a question, I think.
No, I was. It sounds more like, sort of, because we definitely do talk about your ideal client avatar around that whole kind of, who is the person, but you say around this, there is research, which is why I think Kieran's coming at it from this whole kind of, what research do I need? That it isn't necessarily one person. And I love this perspective of, who has bought before, because that actually puts people into, certainly Kelly and I talk about the user journey. Different people buy at different stages. So exactly as you've just said, it's that whole, well, what are they ready for, and when are they actually ready? That's more of a, that will actually really help. Charmaine's just actually sort of saying, your avatar, aka your ideal client, everything's moving, is someone who is like you, not 100%, because that would never happen, but similar. And it's also about asking for the sale. So many people don't do it, and I think that says yes, please.
Yeah, and sometimes it is about you, and sometimes it can be you earlier on in your journey.
Yeah.
But if I think about my ideal customers or clients, they're actually not like me, and so I have to think about the difference. I have to think about how they are different to me. So how they're different to me is that a lot of my clients, my brand is courageous content. A lot of my clients are really nervous about things like doing Instagram reels, or they're nervous about sharing an opinion, or they're nervous about what if someone disagrees with something I say, or what if what their colleagues think. I don't really share those feelings, but I really understand them, because I've worked with so many people like that. And this is the thing about thinking about people that you've worked with. And I love that you talked about the customer journey and desire. So for me, it's like, what you want to do is create desire. So if I sell a product and a service, and people often say, well, oh, it's different, but it's not at all. What you want is to create desire in people, so that they either desire the transformation that your product or service will deliver, or they desire the product, like they want it in their house, they want to wear it, they want to hold it, they want to see it. And I think that that comes from really knowing, and this is again why I keep coming back to, like, have you sold this to somebody before? Think about the conversations you have. What did they say to you? Did they say, oh, I feel like such a wally, posting a reel, I just feel silly, I worry about what my neighbour's going to say to me, I worry. And that's where we need to be. And I think a lot of people, they go too highbrow as well. And actually we really need to meet people on a really human level. Like, I create a lot of educational content. So, I discovered a lot of people don't make Instagram reels because they don't know, a lot of people don't even know how to open the camera on their app. So it's like almost taking it like a state, much further back.
It's the funniest thing, because we've got well over, I think, 200 trainings in our guides and everything else. And sometimes when we're actually devising some of that, it has been one of those situations where we go, right, we're going to answer this, 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 and this. And even for us, and I think we're pretty good at doing this, because so I have just put in the 4 intentions as a tool, because that's a really good way of doing what Janet's saying. If your ideal client, or the person who you're sort of selling to, is the person who is kind of the opposite, so courageous for you, the opposite would be actually they're slightly nervous. If you've got that going on, the 4 intentions is a really great way of extracting that. So Kieran, that might actually be a good way for you to look at what is the thing that you're actually doing. So I've popped that in there. But one of the funniest examples that we had of what you're just talking about was, we were doing the how to do Facebook Lives, and the question that kept coming up from everybody that we hadn't even considered was, where do I look on the phone? It was like, oh, right, okay, good. So go back even further, because 9 times out of 10, you still don't go far enough back from where the person's actually at, so that you can meet them and actually go, don't worry, I'm a person who can help you.
And I think, I've noticed with video, like, I saw a TikTok where somebody was saying how to screenshot something. I was like, what? Like, surely everyone knows how to screenshot. You can Google it. Or the first question I often ask when I'm doing video now is, do you know, first of all, where the camera is on your phone? Because some people don't, and we just assume they do. And do you know how to edit? If you film a short clip, do you know how to edit it? Because there's no point me getting into Instagram Reels or anything like that if somebody doesn't know where to find it on their phone. But you only learn this stuff, obviously, by...
Of course you do. Trial and error, isn't it? You're getting a little bit of love from out in the world. So Rachel Taplin's just actually saying, talking about press release 4. So, I was going to say, for those of you who actually want to talk to someone who does love press releases and everything else, just connect with Rachel, because she'd love to do that. And she's saying, I love all Janet's info, and have been on a couple of her planning events and followed her for years. Great live, thanks. Sebastian's saying that the high horse or over showy content disconnects the audience, which I think is what we're saying. So with that in mind, what are, because you appear on several platforms, Insta seems to be kind of the one that you prefer, but what are the best ways that people can kind of get attention on social media? Like, does it differ across the platforms? And if so, how does a person choose?
Oh, it's a really good question. And I think there's a few factors. So a question I get asked a lot, which is not about social media, but it's probably a good example, is YouTube or podcast. Tell me which one I'm supposed to do, YouTube or podcast. And I've seen people wait for years and years because they can't decide to do. And if you were to look at all the research would tell you YouTube, because video, blah blah blah. However, if you are the kind of person that is going to find it so overwhelming that recording a video, getting it onto YouTube, editing it, all the bits that you have to do, is going to just stress you out so much, YouTube is not the right platform for you. The right platform is where you're going to be able to comfortably show up. So a podcast might be much easier because from a tech point of view, it generally is easier, or doing Facebook Lives, might be easier. So for me, it's always about, first of all, your audience generally, or people make quite big assumptions about platforms. They say, oh no, my people won't be on LinkedIn. And actually being on a platform where there's not many people like you can actually be a great thing. So try not to make assumptions about it's where you're going to be able to show up the most. So, I have people who say, like, I need to be on Instagram, I need to make Instagram Reels. And then when you talk to them, they hate being on video. That's not to say you can never not learn to like club. I didn't like video to start off with, but they hate being on video.
Anybody did, Janet. I don't think anybody does.
No. It's just one of those things that you do, isn't it? But
you just learn. You just get used to it.
They hate, techie things, whatever, and they actually really like writing. So if they like writing and they find that quite comfortable, then actually a platform like LinkedIn might be better for them. I'm not saying it is, but it's just about not thinking about what's more important. Is not what's in vogue or what everyone's talking about. It's about where can you show up consistently, where are you not going to get overwhelmed, where are you not going to get bored, where are you not going to hate, because one of the problems with content is, and I do understand this, I empathize, although I don't feel like this myself, some people don't actually like creating content, and it's a pain and they don't want to do it. And so what's going to be the least painful place for you, and where are you going to enjoy interacting? So that's the first question. It's no point, even if someone says, oh, the place to be is Instagram, but if you hate Instagram, are you going to find that really difficult? It's too complicated. And the other thing I always say is, like, it's better to be good on one platform than be mediocre on 4 or 5. So if you're quite new to it, it's better to pick one platform that you quite like, get the hang of it, because once you've got the hang of one platform, once you kind of start to get a sense of what works, you can replicate that quite easily. If you're trying to learn 5 platforms at once and you don't like social media very much, and it's just too much. So it's about trying to make it really manageable. And when you said, what should you be creating? Well, it's not about you, basically. And I will sometimes have people say, well, I don't like that kind of content. Well, just because you don't like watching it yourself, it doesn't mean that your audience won't like it. So you have to put your ego aside, and you have to say, well, what is it that people need from me? What value can I offer, and how can I show up? But I would really recommend, if you're fairly new to it, or what's more typical is that people have been doing it and it's just not working very well for them. They're not getting the leads and sales that they want. Focus on one platform and say, right, how can I really... And the other thing I would say as well is, instead of thinking about I think I made a bit of a mistake. I used to have a membership program called Build Your Online Audience, and I realised afterwards I thought it was good. It's really what people say they want to do.
Yeah.
But actually, what we should be talking about is building a community.
For sure.
Because if we're talking about building an audience, what we're saying is, I just want to show up and talk about my stuff and whatever I want to talk about, and
broadcast.
Which I think was what I think Sebastian was saying this earlier on. He was talking about just being show offy, but actually, if we say, well, what I want to do, you can build a community. People often think about communities in Facebook groups, but you can build a community on Twitter. You can build a community. You know, if you're thinking about, I want to build a community here.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need a lot of followers to make great sales.
No, not at all.
Not the right people in your community. So that would be another tip I would give as well.
No, Sebastian is a firm favourite of this and catches us live as much as possible. They're also saying, if your content is good, they'll follow you wherever you are. It truly encourages many to join platforms if they see value, even in one person. If you are good in one platform, you can master all the others, which is echoing kind of what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So let me throw this one at you, and the chances are that this is me edging to get into your system so that you can actually share that with people. But you know, because we've just had Black Friday, Cyber Monday, blah blah blah. You know, sort of, how do you feel about awareness days, and what would work well for speakers, authors, and coaches?
Okay, so awareness days get a really bad rap, and actually, when I was a journalist, I wasn't really allowed to use silly ones like Bubblegum Day or whatever. We could use, like, you know, Miscarriage Awareness Day, Pregnancy Loss, or you know, Movember, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think some people can be a bit snobby about awareness days. My diary has thousands of them, and I'll tell you why. They're a jumping off point for me. So, and I have podcasts which explain this, but you know, I sometimes create content using awareness days. I don't even mention the awareness day.
Right.
What it does is it fires that thing in your brain that makes you go. So, for example, I had a post that did really well, which is National Nude Day, right? And it's just about, well, how could I apply that to my business and what I'm doing? So I did something about, do you wear makeup when you do live videos or photographs or whatever? So it was, you know, metaphorically, it was a different type of nude, but it did really well. I was able to take it, and it's just about taking them and using them as a springboard. I mean, the worst way to use awareness days, and I really counsel against this, is to say it is National whatever day today. You see some people, and they'll and that's why I try to, even someone buys my planner, please don't do this, and I actually put it in. It's in the instructions. Like, you don't need to say it's the awareness day. It can be great because you can jump onto hashtags, and if something, you know, if everyone's talking about something, that can be a great way, because people will be on Twitter and various places actually searching for content on that topic. But actually, it's more of it's just more of an idea generator. So I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago for Social Media Kindness Day. And I'm putting out 4 podcasts a week at the moment. So that's a lot of different ideas to think of. And I thought, oh, well, you know, actually, I've got a story about this, which is really relevant. I didn't label it. I just said, you know, for Social Media Kindness Day, I've got a story about when somebody wasn't very kind to me on social media. And, you know, and it's just about getting those, you know, I hate this phrase, but creative juices flowing. And awareness days, they're not like a straitjacket. Sometimes people will say, because I've been selling it for 5 years, you know, I've been asked every question in the book, but people will say, like, well, I can't use an awareness day if it's, are they all UK or US? I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it came from. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's National Nude Day here or US or wherever. Or, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's giving you some creative inspiration, and it's moving you on from that place where you're like, oh, I don't know what to post, or I'm a bit stuck, or that's all it is for me.
Yeah, and also that it has relevancy. So, you know, we have a wide range of people. So even though, you know, what holds them together is speakers, authors, and coaches, they're all change makers in some way, but there will be some kind of relevancy when you look at the awareness days and you go, I didn't even know that. So as you say, yes, the creative juices get going, but there's actually also that literal awareness raising around the fact that that sort of thing is celebrated, where you go, I didn't even realize that would be recognized, and how amazing for this bit of my industry, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah. And it's also, when I was a journalist, the sort of biggest takeaway for me, my editor used to say to me, why do people need to hear about this now? And so that gave me, we call it like a new sense. So and what it does is it also sharpens you up to to other things that are happening. So you might go onto Twitter, or you might sort of go onto the BBC website and see something, and you start to think, well, it would really make sense for me to run it on that day. It would really make sense for me to talk about this in my content today. It gives you, like you say, it gives it relevance, it gives it timeliness. My editor always just say, why do people need to hear about this now, or next week, or next month?
I love that question.
And I think if you can ask yourself that, funnily enough, I listened to a really interesting podcast about where people were slating awareness days the other day. I can't remember what it was. And who was it? It was it? Oh God, who was it? It was the lady who just has come out and said that she's autistic. Oh gosh, I'll think about it.
Don't worry.
But anyway, Melanie Sykes it was, and she was saying. Yes. So she's got an online magazine, and she was saying, well, and this is another trap people fall into. Well, the thing about awareness days is like, why can't we talk about whatever just because well, you can. You can talk about dyslexia on a day that isn't dyslexia day. It's about not taking it too literally and just. Yes, it can be timely and relevant.
Sebastian's literally just saying that. I used to plan around days. Now I plan around the value and message that matters to them, and it works on any day. And that's exactly it. So I think there's a widening the brief a little bit here that kind of goes on. So here comes the big one, because sort of this is always the one that everybody asks. So how far ahead should we be planning our social media, and how often? So this ties back in with what Kieran was probably saying. What I'm really asking is how long does it actually take to kind of stay on top of your social media presence?
Well, it depends on lots of different factors. But the one thing I would say is, and I think you mentioned this earlier, was to avoid getting into the shoulds, because when we get into the shoulds, we become uncreative and uninspired. So there's no real shoulds. I have noticed something helping people with content for quite a few years, that most people, where they run into problems is because they're trying to post too much. And so what happens is we get into this like feast and famine thing where January comes, you're like, right, I'm on it this year, I'm going to post every day, 3 times a day, whatever, and you do about 4 days of it, and then you're like, oh my God, I just hate content. And so I've sort of, for me, the sweet spot is maybe about 4 days a week. If you were to show up and post something 4 days a week, even if it was, because you can create social media posts like in really tiny quick ones that can be really effective. If you were just to make that commitment, and this is what my plan is really based around, then even missing a few weeks, like I'm a big fan of, if you're not feeling it, take a week off. I get overwhelmed every so often. I just think I cannot go on social media. I can't do another video. I just take a week off. I don't worry about it at all. Take a few weeks off. But if you were to show up 4 days a week for most weeks of the year, that's a lot most people are managing doing this on off. I call it like yo-yo content creation.
For sure.
Whereas if you were just to say, well, I'm going to try and show up with 4 things, it could be, and it's Instagram stories don't take very long to create it. So it really is about but I always say to people that it's better to show up once a week and actually do it. Because that develops the habit that then thinks, okay, well, maybe I could manage twice a week. But I think what a lot of people is they just try to go all in. They do too much. They get exhausted and overwhelmed. So the first thing we have to look at is, well, how much time? Well, first of all, sometimes people email me and they say, should I invest in your whatever it is? And because I don't have time to come to your event, or I don't have time to do whatever it is. And I say, okay, so that sounds like you're fully booked at the moment. You have enough leads and sales to keep you. Oh, no, I haven't, but I still haven't got time to come. And so I would say, well, the thing is, I mean, my best tip for content is to do yours first before you do your clients' work. Like I prioritize, because if you don't prioritize your own content, your own source of leads and sales, you might not have any clients, So, and if you're letting other people's schedules dictate you, and that you can set the boundaries and say, look, actually, I don't start on client work. I don't do anything till 12 o'clock, which makes me sound like
that's it.
I do my own content in the morning. And then if I'm doing calls, unless it's very unusual, I just do it in the afternoon, to say I'm only free in the afternoon. And so that means that my own content always gets done, because it's
priority.
My client work still gets done, and no one complains. I don't do, but so the first thing is actually putting some time aside for it. And it's difficult to say because it depends what you want from it. So if you just need to get, I sometimes work with coaches or consultants, and they're looking to get, 1 new client a month. So, what's the best way to? The other thing as well, this is controversial, but
You're
content.
about to answer Kieran's question without me asking it. Right. So you say it and I'll ask it nonetheless.
But content, sometimes content isn't always the answer. Sometimes if you need a client quickly, your answer is to go make a list of all the people that you've worked with and send some outreach emails. That's better content for you to be creating. So it really comes back to, like, what is it that you want to do? If you are a coach or consultant that maybe just needs to get a bit more visibility, like, you need again, do you want one new client a month or two new, how are you going to measure your success? Because just fanning about social media is just a waste of time. So and there might be easier ways for you to get those people just by doing outreach and just by reaching out. Was that what you wanted to?
Well, so Kieran literally said, what does Janet think about some mixed messaging around social media, with some saying post every day and others saying they don't post at all on social media? So it kind of veers into that kind of range.
Well, it's kind of, again, it comes back to your aim. Like, if you can, if you're fully booked and you don't, like, I was listening to someone the other day who wrote the book about deep work. I was listening to
Cal Newport.
Yeah, he doesn't have any social media.
Yeah,
well,
none.
If you can be fully booked and earn as much money as you want to without social media, and you don't particularly enjoy it, then don't do it. Like, it's about, if you there's a reason for you to do it, if that makes sense.
And it is, sort of, so one of the reasons that we set up Changemaker Central is because we really do want people to work their business on their terms, and because there might be new people listening, terms for us is actually a way of evaluating how that works. So are you using your time, your energy, your resources, your money and your skills in a way that actively works for you? So that might include setting those boundaries of, I only start my client work at 12 o'clock, for example. That's a great example of working on your terms, because that's exactly what we're going for here, which really works. So Sebastian's giving you another little bit of love, boundaries, and prioritizing around your brand. If you can't honor your own brand, how will you honor a client's, which is really good. But talk to us a little bit more about the planner, because I am a fan, and tell us a little bit more about your approach, or the planner's approach, to how people might make it easier for themselves.
So it's really evolved over the last 5 or 6 years, and the question I used to get asked,
love, by the way, which I also really love, because you've got to act on feedback, haven't you?
Yeah, and you've got to. It's interesting, because we were just talking before about somebody who'd given some feedback to say the planner isn't what I want, and can you make it like this just for me? It's got to be a balance between actually what's going to work for most people, rather than, if somebody wants to create their own bespoke planner, they'll have to do that themselves. But I think we've evolved it based on just what I've learned about people and content, and I'm constantly talking to my community all the time and seeing what they're asking all the time. The phrase that used to come up all the time is, I just want somebody to tell me what to post, where and when. If somebody could just tell me to do that. And so that's all very well, and of course we'd all love that. But and I remember somebody getting quite upset. They bought my planner last year, and they got really upset because they thought it was full of pre-written posts. And I remember saying to this lady, well, what do you think would happen if I gave you pre-written posts that were not written for your ideal client or customer in mind? She said, well, people wouldn't resonate. And I was like, exactly. So, but at the same time, I understand that people are time poor, and that part of getting started with social media can be not knowing where to start. So I've been thinking over, how can I get as close as possible to just tell me what to post, where and when, without giving people templates, because they don't work, because they're not designed for you. So I came up, so I gradually, sort of having worked with hundreds and hundreds of people on this, is like, actually about 4 days a week, 4 days a week, if you did it consistently, even with a few weeks off, is better than yo-yo, stop, start, stop, start. If you aim to maybe show up four times a week. And then people, but what do I post? So there's 4 types of content that have worked well for me and work well for my clients. But again, what I would say to people is, the problem with planners is not people getting the wrong planner. It's people thinking they have to use them in the same way. So a planner is not valuable unless I write in a page and use every bit of it. Like if you used your planner and you got one great date that helped you land a new client or create a really great piece of content, that's value. So I think our problem with planners is that we kind of expect them to be all serving. And I don't write that much in my own planner. I use a notebook and I use different bits and pieces. I have some clients who write in every page. It's just how they work. So I came up with these 4 styles of content that had worked really well for me. And the way I look at it is like stabilizers. So for some people, they need stabilizers on their bike. So if you give them 4 styles of content and say, just start off for the first few months, try one of these a week, you'll probably find that some of them resonate more with your audience than the others. You might decide you just want to do 4 of one style, or but people who are, and I learned this when I was a school teacher, is something that I've brought with me, is templates. And so I used to use writing frames to help kids who find it difficult to write. But everyone finds it difficult to write if they don't know what they're going to write about. So I can share something about that in a second. But so the 4 styles of content are, they spell out nice, which makes it nice and easy to remember. So news and trends, that's basically something new or in the news. Inspire, community, and educate. And I can tell you a bit more about give you some examples if that's helpful.
Go for it.
But how we've done it in the planner is this year, this is a lot of years of refinement, is so we have this little thing at the top here where you can put you're going to go for this style, aren't you, the cheetah, I think. So you put your sticker for the style, and then you can use this as a day-to-day planner if you want. We also have these little things where you can accountability, so how much you've posted, so you can look back and say, I did my 4, whatever. But I would always counsel people, you don't have to use it exactly. This is just a structure that you might find useful to start with, and then
I love that you're saying that, because yesterday, so we ran a business boost day yesterday inside our membership, and we do have a planner, and it's the business building planner, sort of like we call it the playbook. And actually some people really use what of the 4 activities that are money making activities are you actually doing. Some people use them religiously, other people don't, and it's like, you have permission to use a planner whatever way you use it, so long as it's useful to you in actually doing what you need to do, which is that end goal in mind that you've been talking about, right?
Yeah, it's all about the outcome. And like I say, I don't actually write that much in mine, and so I say because that's not how my brain works, but I do use it. I use it every day, but I use it in a, it doesn't mean it's not useful to me, because it gives me that framework. So in terms of the styles of content, so we've got news and trends, which is something new or in the news. And so sometimes people can get a bit, again, it's easy to get a bit literal with this, but for example, for me, social media news might be news. So there's a new head of Twitter. So there's the Twitter boss has stepped down, someone else, or it could be, you can now tag posts on TikTok. But I mean, I was talking to a lady, it could be news about something new that you're launching. So it could be that you've got a new product or service, that could be your news. It could be, for example, that you I don't know, so there was a story that everybody's talking about. What was it, Gordon Ramsay's daughter, somebody called her Tubby or something, didn't they? So if you were somebody who specialized in nutrition or health, or young people's self-esteem or something like that, it's a great opportunity for you to use that as a hook, for some content.
For sure.
So I always recommend people start. Twitter's great for this, or you set up a Google alert for keywords that are kind of to do with your and somebody mentioned, I think Sebastian mentioned, content on your website. I try not to get too bogged down with this, because I think it can feel overwhelming sometimes. I'm supposed to be on podcasting and all of this different stuff. Like for some people, start somewhere and then they don't do anything because they're like, I can't do it all. But I use this type of thing. So I do 4 podcasts a week. One of them is news and trends, one's inspire, one's community, and one's educate. Sometimes I miss them out, but it just gives me a bit of a structure. So inspire is making people feel better. So motivational quotes or memes, they have to be good though. Like weedy ones don't work very well, but they have to be. Or sometimes it can be about sharing a story about something that's happened to you, that reassures people or people feel better. You know, if I share about making mistakes, you know, early in my business, or somebody sending me a nasty email, it's relatable, kind of keep going, you know. Then we've got community. I think a lot of people don't do enough of this. And if you have a Facebook group, this stuff's really important. But just asking questions like, where do you live? And you know, are you a night owl or a lark? Or often, particularly if you have a Facebook community, it can feel quite intimidating. And if everyone's talking like highbrow like stuff, and then you come in, and sometimes people need a bit more warming up time, or they just want to talk about their favorite coffee cup or whatever. So I call that community content. The other aspect of that is taking people a bit behind the scenes. So showing people, coaches and consultants often say, I don't understand how I can do this because it's boring, I just work in my office. But if I share, you know, I was talking to you about my light before, but if I share my microphone setup and my light and tech that I'm using, or what my desk looks like,
Janet, you've got 3 cats who are bound to lie on your work. That in itself is content.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the cats. Yeah, people love the cats. For me, a community, or the other thing that comes under inspire for me is sales content. So testimonials. So when I'm thinking about selling, I'm not thinking about selling people. I'm thinking I can inspire people to buy my planner because I share a great testimonial of somebody who's having a great experience using it, has had a great outcome. I can show an unboxing video with someone's really excited about theirs. You know, so it's kind of rethinking also how we see content. And then the final one is educate, which is the one that people are most familiar with, which is you know, tips and tactics. But where a lot of people go wrong with that is that they try to give too much. So with educate content, I'm always like, can I give somebody one tip or one little thing that they can go and do today? And they can come back and go, oh my God, that worked. Or, you know, I used, you know, when I had that difficult conversation, instead of saying this, I said this, and the conversation went much better. I'm now really happy. If you can kind of pile on a lot of quick wins, they're your sort of marketing touch points, and that's how you're growing the know, like, and trust. So that's your sort of 4 stars. But like I say, for me, it's not a straitjacket. It's not you must do this and you must do these. It's just a framework that's there for you if you need some support just to get going, and then you can find your wings and go, kind of thing.
No, it makes complete sense. And I think there is something to be said. And again, I'm always going to say this in relation to this. If you're working on your terms, then part of that is that you actually have a regular rhythm and routine. And those who know me well will know I always talk about that. But a rhythm and routine that allows you the flexibility rather than that hems you in some way. And as you say, if you miss a couple here and there, it actually doesn't matter too much, particularly if you've built up that kind of loyal following in its own way. So yeah, it's all about experimenting with what works best for you. And, you know, music to my ears, for those of you who know me well, you know, that whole, what are you actually trying to make it do for you? So if you want to do more speaking next year, you want to be gearing your content towards actually the person who's going to be looking at that, which might be the bookers for the stages that you're looking at, rather than anything else. And so how do I modify? How does a person, that's the thinking to do, is how do they actually do that? So thank you. It's great. And I love that you have, because I think a lot of people do like when it's something unfamiliar to someone. A lot of people like to have a structure presented, and I love that you give full permission and in fact encouragement to go, don't bother using it all in the way that I've laid it out, because you're unique and you're you, and you know, use it in the way that really supports you to actually get something out there. And you know, that's one of the things I really appreciate.
It definitely makes a difference. And with things like creating Instagram reels or videos, I give people like fill in the gaps scripts, if you like, or and say, I don't want you to do this, you know, I don't think you should do this forever, but if this helps you make your first video, your first 4 videos, and stops you, you know, if you have to make some of them like this to start off with, and then you start to go, oh, I think I might just have a go at this, and I think it's just about giving people a bit of scaffolding, and then some people will jump off quicker than others, other people will cling to it for a bit longer, but that's all fine. But I think for some people, that I always come back to that thing of just tell me what to post where and when. If you don't give people any structure, and because we're all different personalities, like some types of, if you're not somebody who's, if for me, creativity is just, it comes quite naturally to me, just trying stuff or whatever. But I appreciate for some people with different types of brains, it's like giving me a maths paper to do, or to give you're telling me to do some of the counts. It's like the most painful, uncomfortable thing ever. So it's just about trying to make it accessible to all different types of people, really.
That's really beautiful. I really love that. So you're getting a little bit of love from Samantha Carbon, and really nice to see you, Sam. Nice to have you back.
Oh yeah, I've worked with Sam before. She's lovely.
That's really good. And so I how do people best, where do you most like being connected to people? How do people find you? I know you're in the Connection Hub, obviously, so feel free to tag Janet, and this is going to be pinned up to the top for the whole of the week, so tag Janet in any of the questions that we might have missed as we've been talking, so please do that. But where do you want to be found?
So Instagram's the best place to find me on social media. Although I do have like a clever messenger bot that answers things. I do look at them, but my messenger bot tends to reply to things. But and I have a podcast, which currently the Courageous Content Podcast, which is going out 4 times a week at the moment, and I'm experimenting with it. I'm not sure if that will continue, but it gives me a kind of rhythm to stick to. And 3 of them are short, bite-sized little tips. Today's is about, which is going out later, which is about why I'm fed up with LinkedIn polls. And which would be another tip I would give you, like don't be vanilla. Like people don't vanilla content. You've got to be prepared to have an opinion about something. And so I do 3 shorter mini episodes, which are kind of snippets, and the educate one tends to be an interview or a tutorial or something, which is generally on a Thursday. But I don't get too hung up if I miss a day or something, because life gets busy. It's okay.
I think that's the best thing that most people listening are probably going to take away from this, is like, I can relax around it a little bit. If Janet can relax around it, I can relax around it. So that works beautifully.
It's got to be fun and enjoyable, because it's hard to stick to something that you don't enjoy. And I know some people really don't, some people, I'm never going to enjoy any of it, but I think most people can find the joy somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be easier to stick around if you're actually excited about sharing the message. Yes. It's easy for you to share it because you've picked the right medium, and you're not trying to put techie stuff in the way because everyone says you should be doing this, that, and the other. So it's about making it as easy and enjoyable for yourself as possible.
I absolutely love that, and thank you for making it easier for people. I have put a little link into the planner, and if you put in Helena 10, you'll get a 10% discount on it as well, because that's always a fun thing to do, because if you've listened through us all the way here, then you probably are going to want to go and have a look at it. So we thought we'd make it a little bit more juicy for you. So Janet, thank you for showing up and sharing all your wisdom with us. Well, not all your wisdom, lots of your wisdom with us, and there's more where that came from. So just go and check out Janet and connect with her in all sorts of ways on your platform of choice, which works beautifully. And
thank you for having me. And I'm going over to Instagram in just a second to do live Instagram to do half an hour of live Instagram account reviews. So even if you don't want your account reviewed, people find it interesting just to listen in. So
that's brilliant, because Sebastian's actually duly stalked you on Insta already, so that's great.
We're still waiting for the cats.
Thank you. You'll get them over time, Sebastian. Thank you, Janet.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
You are so welcome.